By day, he was a lawyer who used the law to get scumbags off the hook. By night, he used bullets to send them to the grave. Every client he served was guilty beyond doubt. The kind of filthy, rich criminals even top law firms refused to defend. Bien Haoji exploited every legal loophole imaginable to clear their names, earning not only the fury of victims' families, but also non-stop media attention. When grieving families hurled eggs at him, the respectable lawyer calmly left the scene. The moment he got back into the car, the previously miserable client burst out laughing. Bien Haoji sat beside him, smiling and flattering like a loyal servant. That's when Chairman Park asked curiously, "With so much evidence stacked against me, how did you overturn everything?" Bien Haoji replied innocently, "Because there wasn't any to begin with. That's why I could insist it didn't exist. If you ask where it went, wouldn't that put me in an awkward spot?" The two fell silent. Then they laughed together. Chairman Park was extremely pleased, even considering making Bien Haoji head of his legal department. Bien Haoji told him to get a good night's rest and said they'd be meeting again very soon. That night, Chairman Park met up with two lovers. Just as things were heating up, the woman by the window heard a noise. She hurriedly warned him that someone was outside. The intruder turned out to be Bien Haoji, who casually claimed he was just out for a walk. Chairman Park froze. "What are you talking about? This is the 34th floor." He snapped, "Why are you here? Work's already over." Bien Haoji replied calmly, "Didn't I say I'd come back? Besides, this time it's for a new commission." Park sat up, completely confused. Bien Haoji quickly added, "My mistake. I forgot to explain earlier. This case," he said softly, "wasn't commissioned to a lawyer." Park grinned. "I don't know what you think is happening, but you've got the wrong guy. Dogs eat dog food. If a dog dares to covet human food, it gets torn apart." Bien Haoji spoke in a low voice. "Chairman, there's a famous saying in certain lines of work. Those who only master knives are third-rate. Those who master all weapons are second-rate." Cold sweat ran down Park's back as he recalled rumors of someone who could kill with octopus tentacles. Bien Haoji continued, "As for first-rate, they say everything in the world can be a weapon." Park roared, "Then come on, first-rate. Let's see what's faster, tentacles or steel." Bien Haoji finished assembling his gun and frowned. "What are you talking about? I'm third-rate." Park instantly dropped his katana and raised his hands. "That's cheating. You're a lawyer, not a hitman." After a moment of thought, Bien Haoji said, "A lawyer and a killer. In short, a killer lawyer." As for why he walked both paths, the story had to start somewhere. In this country, there existed an organization known as the Glory Club. On the surface, it claimed to serve humanity. In reality, it was a dark syndicate that even sold murder as a service. Bien Haoji, codename Road, was one of the volunteers who survived on the wages they paid. One day, a thought suddenly struck him. How long am I going to live like this? If he devoted his entire life to the club, B rank would be his absolute ceiling. He had never seen a monster like Bardero with his own eyes. To him, such beings were almost mythical. Within the Glory Club, C rank, 16th place was as far as his ability went. Even though his job could kill him at any moment, he realized he had no idea what else he could possibly do. Passing by a sushi restaurant, he even wondered if he should work there. After all, the only thing he truly knew how to use was a knife. That was when he noticed an ad. The one chance to change your life, become a lawyer. Bien Haoji brushed it off. He'd seen countless scams like this. They only worked on people who were truly suited for it. What surprised him was that he apparently had a talent he never knew about, an aptitude for learning. That talent actually carried him all the way to becoming a licensed lawyer. He was ecstatic. As long as his life wasn't on the line anymore, making a living with words instead of weapons sounded just fine. Using the money he'd earned by risking his life, he opened his own law firm, convinced that safe money was all he needed from then on. 5 months later, he hadn't landed a single case and was drowning in loan interest. Just as he was starting to look for a place to quietly disappear, a massive commission came knocking. Before long, Bien Haoji was sitting across from his client inside a prison visiting room. That client, Zhao Do-san, was a piece of trash every other lawyer had already given up on. Even so, Zhao showed no respect. "Why are you so late?" He sneered. "You got the money, start working. Or do you not like making cash?" Bien Haoji told him to take those words back. Zhao scoffed. "And if I don't?" Veins bulging on his forehead, Bien Haoji replied through clenched teeth, "I'm a lawyer now, so I'll only tolerate this 3 times. Zhao laughed. "And the 4th time? What then? What can a coward like you do?" In his imagination, Bien Haoji slammed a pen straight into Zhao Dotsan's hand. His body lunged forward, one hand clamping tightly around Zhao's throat. He glared at him and growled, "Even if it cost me my life, I'll tear through the throat of a bastard like you." Zhao Dotsan was already crying, swearing through tears that he'd watch his words from now on. But Bien Haoji wasn't done. "You little punk," he snapped. "How dare you speak disrespectfully to your elders?" Then Zhao's voice cut through the scene, and the fantasy shattered. Everything that had just happened existed only in Bien Haoji's head. In reality, he desperately needed this massive fee to keep his law firm alive. So he apologized, forcing a smile, while silently vowing that one day he would personally deal with Zhao Dotsan. Sitting back down, Bien Haoji explained calmly, "This case is difficult, even for the judge. The facts are clear. You assaulted a passerby, killed him, and the entire incident was caught on camera." Zhao shrugged. "So what? Getting me out is your job." Bien Haoji shook his head. "The only option is a settlement with the victim's family," Zhao sneered. "Then there is a solution. Go make them agree." Inside, Bien Haoji cursed. "If it were you, would you agree?" Soon after, he set out for the victim's family home. On the way, he couldn't stop complaining to himself. What kind of lunatic would forgive the man who killed their family? Maybe I should just turn back now. Still, he reminded himself, he'd survived 15 years on the battlefield. Convincing someone to stamp a settlement might not be impossible. Before long, he met the victim's son, Jin Jaho. Even when Bien Haoji dropped to his knees, Jin Jaho coldly told him to leave. Left with no choice, Bien Haoji pulled out the settlement contract. "Sign this, and you'll receive 10 billion won, money that would take 42 years to save at 2 million won a month." As he spoke, shadows of approaching footsteps appeared outside the window. Clearly uninvited guests. Neither man noticed. Jin Jahu spoke quietly, "Once you sign, 10 billion won will be in your account. If it were you, sir, facing the monster who killed your father and dumped his body in a river, could you forgive him?" Bien Haoji froze. He knew the answer because he wouldn't forgive either. Just then, the door was slammed violently, shattering the brief calm. 2 burly men barged in, claiming they were there to collect a debt from Jin Jaho. Bien Haoji instantly recognized the overused scam. No matter how many times Jin Jaho insisted he had no money and had never borrowed any, they refused to back off. Bien Haoji suddenly cut in, his voice low. "Can we talk this through properly?" The man in front, Wu Taesik, didn't know who he was and eyed him warily. Moments later, Bien Haoji raised both hands apologetically, explaining that he was just a lawyer passing by. He grabbed his briefcase and left. Watching his back, Wu Taesik sneered. "That guy looks more like a killer than a lawyer." Jin Jahu also began to doubt who this strange man really was. After leaving the apartment, Bien Haoji quickly contacted Zhao Dotsan. "I did everything I could, but the family's grief is still raw. They won't agree for now. Still," he added, "opening people's hearts is what I'm best at. They'll change their minds eventually." Zhao cut him off. "No need. Those 2 fake collectors will handle it." Meanwhile, the pair stared at Jin Jaho with amused expressions. While they were distracted, Jin Jaho had already slipped out a box cutter. Even so, they didn't take him seriously. Compared to their large frames, Jin Jaho looked frail and powerless. Wu Taesik grabbed his hair and slapped him hard across the face. At that moment, Bien Haoji suddenly appeared by the window that he claimed he'd come back for the settlement papers he'd forgotten. In truth, he'd likely left them behind on purpose, worried about Jin Jaho. The 2 men didn't think much of it. As Huang Cheong-gil reached out to shove Bien Haoji away, Jin Jaho seized the chance and slashed Wu Taesik's arm with a cutter. Breaking free, Enraged, Wu Taisik kicked him back with brutal force. A student stood no chance against him. Just as Wu Taisik continued his threats, Bien Haoji smashed through the window with a kick, crashing in like a projectile. His knee slammed straight into Wu Taisik's face. Jin Jahe froze in shock. Bien Haoji landed lightly, perfectly balanced, while Wu Taisik hit the floor with a heavy thud. Standing tall, Bien Haoji calmly began reciting the law. Article 319 of the H-Nation Criminal Code. Illegal trespassing carries a fine of up to 5 million won, or up to 3 years in prison. Debt Collection Act, Article 9. Using unlawful means without justification that causes fear, distress, or harm is punishable by up to 3 years imprisonment. Seeing this, Huang Cheong-gil immediately grabbed a knife and tried to ambush him from behind. Bien Haoji turned and drove an elbow straight into his abdomen. Realizing things were going south, Wu Taisik rushed in with his blade, ordering Huang to restrain Bien Haoji. He timed his move and leapt, yet Bien Haoji stood perfectly still, calm to an unsettling degree. In the next instant, Bien Haoji violently shook off Huang's grip, then kicked sideways without even looking back, sending the airborne Wu Taisik flying. He ripped off Wu Taisik's belt mid-motion and continued in a flat voice. Unlawful detention. Criminal Code, Article. Illegally confining another person. Carries a fine of up to 7 million won, or up to 5 years in prison. Bien Haoji stood there, imposing and sharp-eyed. Jin Jahe remained frozen in place, shock written all over his face. Bien Haoji went on, "This hairstyle cost me a fortune, and you idiots thought you could mess it up? Do you have any idea how terrifying a murderer, no, a lawyer when he loses his temper, can be? Your threats are nothing but self-humiliation. Legally speaking, the total fine should be 42 million won. But since I didn't call the cops, I'll just take this much. Also, I recorded everything: illegal detention, violent debt collection, abuse. Crystal clear audio. If you have legal questions, feel free to consult me." He handed the money to Jin Jahe. "Take it, Jahe. You got lucky today, having a lawyer around. Stay alert from now on. Give your father a proper farewell and send him off right. As for these trash bags, I'll call the police and throw them out." Just as Bien Haoji was about to step out, Jin Jahe shouted from behind, "Mister!" Bien Haoji snapped back, "Didn't I tell you I'm a mister?" Jin Jahe continued anyway. "Mister, you're not really a lawyer, are you?" Bien Haoji spun around, shouting instinctively, "I'm not." He caught himself and hurriedly corrected, I'm not a mister. I am a lawyer. Just, let's say I'm a lawyer for now." Jin Jahe looked at him seriously. "Mister," veins pulsed on Bien Haoji's forehead as Jin Jahe finished, "I want to hire you." Bien Haoji stared at him in disbelief. Jin Jahe respectfully held out the money. "Zhao Dotsan, the man who killed my father. Please kill that bastard." Bien Haoji waved his hands frantically. "Jahe, that's not what I'm here for. This is something you take to the police. I'm just a lawyer. I really have to go." Jin Jahe stood there, disappointment slowly draining the light from his eyes. In a moment of panic, Bien Haoji almost headed for the shattered window, then steadied himself and muttered, "Yeah, door. Let's use the door." He nervously stepped toward the door, still trying to justify himself. "Guess I took the wrong way. Happens in life. Doors go both ways." Suddenly, he stopped. A strange idea flashed through his mind. Why didn't I ever think of that? First, I pay Jin Jahe the settlement money and secure the agreement. Then I go to court, defend Zhao Dotsan, and collect my legal fee. After that, I accept Jin Jahe's commission, paid with the settlement, and kill Zhao Dotsan as a hitman. That means double the money. A massive double commission. Jin Jahe remained frozen in place. Bien Haoji handed him a handkerchief and said calmly, "Dry your tears, my client. I, lawyer Bien Haoji, will make sure that man is removed cleanly." Early the next morning, Jin Jahe arrived at Bien Haoji's law office and froze at the sight before him. Calling it a law firm felt generous. It looked more like a criminal hideout. After hesitating for a long moment, he forced himself to step onto the floor where the office was located. The moment he reached the door, Agonized screams and cries for help burst out from inside. Jin Jahu spun around instantly. I need to get out of here. Now. Yet his feet refused to move, because he clearly heard someone inside talking about tearing a person apart and selling the pieces. Gritting his teeth, Jin Jahu turned back. I misjudged him. Just looking at him, you can tell he's mob trash, no different from the rest. Stealing himself, he rushed inside to stop the violence. Eyes squeezed shut, phone raised high. He shouted, "I've already called the police." When he opened his eyes, he froze. Bien Haoji was standing in front of the TV. The screams were coming from actors in a drama playing on screen. Jin Jahu apologized hurriedly. "So, you were hitting the TV. It's old," Bien Haoji explained. "You have to smack it to get a picture." Jin Jahu laughed awkwardly. "You're not going to hit me too, right?" Once the misunderstanding was cleared up, Bien Haoji had him sit on the couch and handed him a cup labeled VIP only. "Max Blend. 2 sticks," he said. Looking at the cup, Jin Jahu muttered, "Shouldn't this be for the VIP client instead?" Bien Haoji explained calmly, "That one's too bitter. Not good for your health. Someone your age needs something sweet to keep their energy up." Then he got straight to the point. "Now, can we talk business? If we want Zhao Dotsan dead, the first step is getting him released. And that's where the real problem is. As you know, his crimes are painfully obvious. Every detail is fully documented, almost like he wanted them found. In simple terms, this guy should be absolutely impossible to release." Jin Jahu couldn't help snapping. "You say that way too confidently." Bien Haoji smiled. "But your brother here has a solution, point one, that changes the impossible." "Jin Jahu, I'm lawyer Bien Haoji. You probably already know the answer by now." Jin Jahu was stunned. He hadn't expected Bien Haoji to have investigated this deeply. Just as Jin Jahu was eager to see Zhao Dotsan walk free, Bien Haoji stopped him. Because even then, there's no way to let him escape completely. A settlement won't stop criminal punishment. Drunk driving, hit and run, dumping the body. Every step is caught on camera. Even the president couldn't interfere with a case like this. What am I supposed to do? The plan was double the pay. No, a perfect double commission. And yet it collapsed right at the first step. Jin Jahu hesitated, then asked, "But in movies, undercover agents sneak in and tamper with evidence. I asked that what you do too, mister." Bien Haoji corrected him immediately. "Hey, I'm a lawyer. Evidence tampering, that's spy stuff." Suddenly, a brilliant idea flashed through his mind. He grabbed Jin Jahu's hand excitedly. "Jin Jahu, do you have any idea how smart you are?" Not long after, due to insufficient evidence, Zhao Dotsan was officially released. The decision sparked massive public outrage. As the victim's family hurled eggs, Bien Haoji stood there smiling. Not dodging a single one, Zhao Dotsan avoided them all and sneered, "Everyone, I didn't do anything wrong. Please forgive me. But what can I do?" The judge declared me innocent. The blatant provocation poured fuel on the fire. The victim's family desperately tried to break past the police. And now, welcome to Bien Haoji's legal lesson. In court, evidence truly commands absolute power. Each country follows a system of strict evidence-based adjudication. But looking at it the other way around, as long as there's no evidence, you're safe. No matter what was done. With his lethal skill as a hitman and his intimidating command of the law, sneaking in and tampering with evidence was trivial. Just then, a voice called out from behind. "Lawyer Bien Haoji." He turned and asked politely, "Prosecutor Han Ui? Were you calling me?" The man was Han Ui, the prosecutor in charge of the case. Fresh back from training in the US, he preached justice nonstop. His name literally meant it. Leaning closer, he said quietly, "Mr. Bien, I don't know what methods you used, but don't forget, one day you may stand in court as the defendant." Bien Haoji replied casually, "Of course." "Very possible. Thank you for the reminder, prosecutor." With that, he sent the man on his way. After school, Jin Jahu rushed to the law office and ran straight to Bien Haoji. "I've heard the news. What do we do next?" Bien Haoji answered calmly, "Did you know? Every time I enter a courtroom, prosecutors start drafting their resignation letters." Jin Jahu grabbed him and shook him anxiously. "Then it's time to take out that murderer, Zhao Dotsan, right?" Bien Haoji pressed a hand on his head, forcing him to calm down. Jiho, I hear you, but give me a little space first. Before that, tell me, do you like movies with big plot twists? Jin Jiho said he watched them occasionally, confused why that mattered. Bien Haoji immediately pulled up a surveillance clip. There's something you have to see. Jiho recognized it. The footage Bien Haoji had deleted during the break-in. But all he cared about now was avenging his father. Bien Haoji's tone turned sharp. No, you have to watch this. He scrubbed the video to 2 hours, 4 minutes, and 2 seconds. Then to 2 hours, 4 minutes, and 7 seconds. What do you notice? Bien Haoji asked. Jin Jiho frowned. Nothing happened. The problem isn't what happened, Bien Haoji said. It's the car. Vehicles have shock absorbers. Their height shifts slightly depending on weight inside. The important part starts here. Look closely at the writing on that panel. After the hint, Jin Jiho finally noticed something was off. Because the vehicle's height changed, text that should have been hidden became visible. Bien Haoji explained again, that means something significant changed inside the car at that exact moment. Besides Zhao Dotsan, there was a third person in the vehicle. Shortly after the accident, that person switched seats with him. In other words, the one who killed your father may not have been Zhao Dotsan at all. Of course, this is still a hypothesis. We need confirmation. Jin Jiho immediately asked, then what do we do now? If there's another culprit, what's the point of letting Zhao go just to kill him later? Bien Haoji replied confidently, what are you worried about, Jiho? You've already hired a hitman lawyer to handle this case. Night fell quickly. The law office went completely dark as Bien Haoji felt along the bookshelf that he remembered. The mechanism was hidden between a Go manual and a novel titled Cold Night. A faint click echoed as the mechanism activated. He pulled the bookshelf open with effort. Behind it was a secret armory, guns and blades neatly arranged, gas masks and explosives lined up beside them. Earlier that afternoon, after calming Jin Jiho down, Bien Haoji had explained that Zhao Dotsan belonged to the so-called MZ gang, a decentralized, cell-based organization with members scattered everywhere. Meaning, to find a real killer, every related member had to be dealt with at once. So I'll infiltrate them while they're gathered. Jin Jiho immediately tried to stop him. That's way too dangerous. Bien Haoji reassured him. I've been doing this for over 10 years. Sometimes you have to be invisible, like air. Other times you flow in like water. Perfect disguise, that's my specialty. At that moment, the entire MZ gang was gathered at a Chinese restaurant. Sitting at the head table, Zhao Dotsan was bragging about how he'd escaped a life sentence. Listen up, I'll say it once. Lack of evidence. Not guilty. Ha ha ha. One of the lackeys asked, didn't you give the victim's son 10 billion won? Zhao shrugged. That's money he'd never earn in his lifetime. Let him pretend to be a responsible father and leave it to his kid. Me? I'll make it back after a few months of hard work. In that investment chat room, all I need is some sweet talk and idiots line up to throw money at me. Suddenly, Zhao looked ahead with a mocking grin. Well, if it isn't our VIP from the investment chat. Boss, your English is impressive. The man kneeling on the floor begged Zhao Dotsan desperately. Please give the money back. That was my entire life savings. Zhao sneered. You invested willingly, didn't you? And you knew exactly what this was. You saved every cent, went all in, and lost everything. Who's to blame for that? His voice turned cold. You do realize we have your entire family's information, right? Your workplace. Every one of your friends' contact details. If we wanted those photos we took can be uploaded anywhere. He smirked. By the way, your sister's pretty cute. Just then, one of the lackeys leaned in and whispered, boss, a guess here. Everyone in the room turned toward the entrance at once. The newcomer was Bien Haoji, fully disguised. Inside, he sighed. I've done this for over a decade. Why would these idiots pick a Chinese restaurant as their base? At the moment, Bien Haoji was posing as a delivery guy bringing Zhajiang noodles. Two lackeys approached with mocking grins. What's this? Delivering noodles to a Chinese restaurant. Since you're here, let us taste how good they are. They reached out to grab the food box. Bien Haoji shouted, no, and clutched it tightly. Zhao suddenly sensed something off. That voice sounds familiar. Take off your helmet. You know me, don't you? Bien Haoji froze. There were far more people than expected. Why are they all eating together like this? Damn it. At Zhao's order, a lackey reached for the helmet. Bien Haoji calculated rapidly. If this continued, the plan was finished. When there's no solution left, you fight. For a split second, every punk froze. Then they surged forward all at once. But before they could close in, Bien Haoji dropped them one by one barehanded. I went through all that trouble to infiltrate this place perfectly, he said coldly. And you ruined everything, Zhao Doutsan. As Bien Haoji removed his helmet, recognition finally hit. It's you, the lawyer from before. Why are you here? No. How did you find this place? After dealing with every lackey, Bien Haoji brushed off his sleeves calmly. You're just too rude. Don't you know how to speak respectfully to your elders? Even if I wiped you all out, I'd still walk away not guilty. Zhao Doutsan looked confused. What the hell are you talking about? Bien Haoji replied calmly. Isn't this exactly what you like the most? In the end, this case will still be closed due to lack of evidence. A muscular man nearby let out a cold laugh. Lack of evidence? Give me a break. Are lawyers this bad at basic math now? Do you even understand the situation? You're alone, and there are 9 of us. Bien Haoji fell silent for a moment. 0.9 strong gang members versus a single anchovy. Anyone would say the anchovy was at a disadvantage. But there's something you don't know. What kind of training I went through to catch people like you? The tear gas training at Glory Orphanage. Not ordinary gas, but the kind that makes you feel like you're dying every single day. Your throat tearing apart in pure hell. Even in that hell, I survived. Every day, as Bien Haoji rummaged through the delivery box, he spoke slowly to D. Oh, you know why one thought kept me alive all this time? That thought was, please, anyone is fine. Even just for one day, I want to try. Everyone instinctively stared at the orphanage-issue grenade he tossed out. As it detonated, Bien Haoji spread his arms wide and shouted, "Showtime!" Just as he was enjoying the moment, something felt wrong. It wasn't Tier GAS.IT was a flashbang. The VIP had already covered his eyes in advance. When a flash faded and the VIP opened his eyes, he saw Bien Haoji and the punks all doing bizarre, awkward dances. Moments later, Bien Haoji rubbed his eyes and cursed, "You pathetic cowards. That's why you'll always be low-level punks." Even when some tried to deny responsibility, he insisted they pay in blood. Zhao Doutsan roared, eyes wide with rage. "You bastard! Begging won't save you now. I'm killing you." All the punks charged at Bien Haoji at once. Zhao said grimly, "If you just obeyed the law, you could have lived a long life. But alone? You can't end this." Then something felt wrong. Bien Haoji stood completely still, yet an overwhelming sense of danger radiated from him. Zhao stammered, "Wait." But 2 lackeys were already airborne, lunging toward Bien Haoji. Zhao finally screamed, "Stop, all of you." Too late. Bien Haoji's fists fired like cannon shells. The 2 men were sent flying. Bien Haoji spoke coldly, crime of intimidation, threatening or endangering others, punishable by a fine of up to 5 million won or up to 3 years in prison. A brute smashed a wooden chair down, then wrapped his arms around Bien Haoji. Another man rushed in swinging a club. Bien Haoji remained calm. Crime of extortion, demanding money or benefits through threats, punishable by a fine of up to 20 million won or up to 10 years in prison. Heavy thuds echoed. The punks hit the floor one after another. Bien Haoji landed steadily. He stood there, radiating authority. Zhao Doutsan trembled violently that he knew he hadn't imagined it. One of the few things his 20 years as a scumbag had taught him was how to recognize a predator's eyes. That instinct was the key to survival and climbing upward fast. And right now, every hair on his arms was screaming. This man was dangerous. Bien Haoji rested one hand on the table, thinking quietly. Maybe he'd spent so much time studying that his body had gone a bit stiff. Zhao Doutsan stood respectfully in front of him. Bien Haoji gestured for him to sit. The moment Zhao sat down, Bien Haoji barked sharply. Who said you could sit on a chair? Zhao Dotsan panicked and dropped to his knees. Only then did Bien Haoji speak coldly. From now on, answer my questions honestly. Zhao nodded frantically, swearing he'd tell everything, even his girlfriend's door password, if needed. Bien Haoji went straight to the point. Who's backing you? Zhao hesitated, clearly too scared to answer. Bien Haoji struck him again and said flatly, either answer confidently or confess properly. But honestly, I won't believe whatever you say, because I have a friend who's far more honest than you. This guy. When he saw the phone's lock screen wallpaper, Bien Haoji squinted and muttered, sorry miss. Just a quick touch. He then opened Zhao Dotsan's social media account. His eyes suddenly widened. On the screen was a post flaunting a gold watch and luxury cars. It was tagged to an ad account called Stock Reading Style, boasting guaranteed 500% profits. Bien Haoji clicked his tongue. Kids like these always cause trouble. Then he found what he was looking for. In the chat history, he saw a familiar face. A smile crept onto Bien Haoji's lips. Well, this just got interesting. Early the next morning, Kim Ji-hoo came to the office to ask about last night. He called out before even reaching the door. Hey uncle, I'm here. Bien Haoji, lounging on the sofa, shot back. You've never once thought of calling me bro, have you? Still, he smiled when he saw Ji-hoo. Our Ji-hoo is here. Today's special recommendation, Max Platinum Blend Coffee. Ji-hoo waved it off. You should drink that yourself, uncle. After sitting down, Bien Haoji turned serious. This is more complicated than we thought. I'll explain it once. Listen carefully. He pointed at a sheet of paper on the table. This is the organizational chart of Zhao Dotsan's group. Ji-hoo stared at it, eyes wide. This can't be real, right? Bien Haoji replied calmly, surprised. To his surprise, Ji-hoo answered seriously, it's drawn terribly. Last time too, our org chart's a joke now. Did a kindergarten kid draw this? What a waste of paper. He hesitated, then asked, you didn't draw this, did you? Bien Haoji denied it a little too quickly. Of course not. Ji-hoo shot back. Then why is your face red? Bien Haoji insisted. It's not red at all. Bien Haoji crumpled the organizational chart into a ball and tossed it aside. Kim Ji-hoo, that's not important. He continued, if there were a chat room claiming you could make huge money, do you think students would join? Ji-hoo thought for a moment. It'd be weird not to join, even if it feels risky. Bien Haoji asked, what do you mean? Ji-hoo explained, it's suspicious how easily they hand out money, but I'd probably still try. Bien Haoji's expression hardened immediately. That's exactly it. They exploit that mindset perfectly. Ji-hoo muttered. So, are you throwing that useless paper away or not? Ignoring the jab, Bien Haoji raised his phone. Have you heard of stock reading? Take a look at this chat room. Ji-hoo glanced at it and shook his head. I have no idea what this is. Bien Haoji shrugged. Neither did I, until recently. Now listen carefully. Imagine a place that tells you in advance which stocks will definitely make money. If the operator claims your wealth will skyrocket the moment you join, people rush in, chasing dreams of easy money, and dump all their savings into it. Once the timing's right, the operator detonates the bomb and disappears with the cash. Families destroyed by this aren't rare. The person who killed your father may be connected to this reading room. Ji-hoo jumped to his feet, furious. If there are that many victims, what are the police even doing? Let's report it right now. Bien Haoji cut him off. It's not that simple. They operate through virtual accounts and overseas IPS tracking them is almost impossible. Ji-hoo pressed urgently. If it's overseas, then what do we do? Do we just let the real culprit escape? Bien Haoji replied calmly, but Lawyer Road found a breakthrough. I've already identified the fisher, the one luring people into the room. Catch them, and the big fish will follow. Ji-hoo picked up the sketchbook and frowned. So who is it? I can't even tell if this drawing is a person or an animal. Bien Haoji instantly broke into a sweat. Don't be shocked. You might actually know this person. He pulled up a photo. This one. Recognize her? Ji-hoo answered immediately, of course. That's Crystal. She's a very famous streamer. Ji-hoo hesitated. She's the key. Bien Haoji nodded. Yes, I'm planning to meet her right away. Ji-hoo frowned. I don't think that's the real objective. This won't work. Bien Haoji froze. Why? Ji-hoo explained seriously. She's known as a ghost. No one knows where she grew up, her real name, or where she lives. There are tons of rumors online, but not a single classmate has ever come forward. How do you know about her, uncle? Bien Haoji smiled confidently. Everything is going exactly as planned. That's Lawyer Road's specialty. He pointed at the screen. Look here. This is the key to meeting her. Ji-hoo assumed it was just a normal live stream. How could this possibly lead you to her? Then realization hit him. Bien Haoji said calmly, a kid as smart as he never needs to worry about the future. A ghost? Bien Haoji murmured that a woman with no traceable info. So mysterious, it was like even her breathing was hidden. Lawyer Road has already found a way to meet her. Meanwhile, at the prosecutor's office, Han Jong-ui was tearing into his team. All the evidence files are gone. What the hell were you doing? Find everything related to Zhao Do-san. Now, two staff members watched from the side and whispered, Lawyer assassin. What does that even mean? I heard every lawyer who went up against Prosecutor Han ended up leaving in tears. This is his first loss, and it was to a brand new lawyer. Han Jong-ui's mind kept looping back to the same conclusion. Impossible, all the evidence and records vanished like they were a lie. It has to be him. His jaw tightened. Bien Haoji, what did you do? No, what are you? After a long silence, Han Jong-ui placed a call. This is Han Jong-ui. There's someone I need you to look into. At the same time, on the other side, their breakthrough target, Crystal, was live streaming. Smiling at the camera, she said, I like honest men who treat me like a princess, careful, thoughtful, and sincere. Do you think that kind of fate will ever come to me? Watching the stream, Bien Haoji answered with confidence, of course. Ji-hoo immediately grimaced. What is that face? That's disgusting. Bien Haoji suddenly asked, by the way, Ji-hoo, how do you even know Crystal? Ji-hoo replied, she's insanely famous among people our age. Haven't you heard the nickname that made her blow up? The sexy, cute goddess, Crystal. Bien Haoji's face froze in shock. Ji-hoo clicked his tongue. Uncle, what are you imagining right now? Ji-hoo explained seriously, she's sexy, she's cute, and she's basically a goddess. Put it together, and you get the sexy, cute goddess, Crystal. Bien Haoji waved his hands quickly. I know what it means. Ji-hoo considered correcting him, then decided not to bother. Anyway, Crystal isn't on the same level as normal streamers. Bien Haoji stared at the screen and said, you can tell. She's insanely pretty. Ji-hoo sighed. Can you be serious for once? But yeah, she's definitely different. And she doesn't stream to make money. Bien Haoji shot back instantly, confident as ever. No way. If it's not for money, why stream? Where does the income go? Donated? Ji-hoo answered flatly, all of it. She donates everything. Bien Haoji reflexively brushed it off. Sure. Everyone donates everything at some point in life. Then it hit him. He jolted upright. Everything? What kind of person does that? Ji-hoo explained. There's a rumor she's a third-generation chaebol, hiding her identity. Streaming is just a hobby. If that's true, would she care about a little tip money? Bien Haoji went quiet, thinking, then it's even stranger. Ji-hoo didn't get what he meant. Bien Haoji motioned for him to think it through. If she's that rich, what is she still missing? Why get tangled up with a rotten criminal like Zhao Do-san? Ji-hoo stared in shock. Now that you say it, you're right. So what do we do next? Bien Haoji suddenly jumped to his feet, full of energy. How about we go find her right now? Ji-hoo immediately looked discouraged. I mean, how exactly? No one knew Crystal's real name, background, or even where she lived. How do you track down someone like that? Bien Haoji grinned confidently. Are you underestimating Lawyer Road? Watch carefully. This is what I can do. Night fell quickly. Over the next several hours, Bien Haoji tried countless methods. All of them failed. Ji-hoo sat quietly on the couch, watching. He couldn't help thinking, this guy talks nonsense all the time. How did he ever become a lawyer? But seeing this, he realized Bien Haoji had a serious side too. Come to think of it, Ji-hoo had heard of an investigation method before. Using the angle of the sunset to determine direction, then identifying location through surrounding buildings, the so-called detective methodology. Maybe I judged him too quickly. This uncle might be more capable than I thought. By sunrise, the desk was covered in empty paper cups, used coffee packets scattered everywhere. Bien Haoji had clearly pulled an all-nighter. Jihu, meanwhile, was fast asleep on the couch. Suddenly, Bien Haoji shouted, "I found it!" Jihu jolted awake, muttering in his sleep, "There's way too much offal in that blood sausage soup." Snapping back to reality, he rushed over. "You found her location? By calculating angles? Or listening to the trains outside?" Bien Haoji puffed out his chest proudly. "Way more reliable than that." Jihu stared at the screen. "What is this?" His eyes widened. "Don't tell me this is." Bien Haoji excitedly showed his result. "That's right. I finally pulled a one-day date voucher. I stayed up all night and dumped my entire savings. 5 million won, just to get this." The next second, Jihu punched him on the head and yelled, "Uncle, you stayed up all night for this?" After calming down, Bien Haoji thought it over. The method was strange, sure, but at least he had secured a way to meet her. Jihu raised another concern that if he tried digging into her connection to Zhao Dukin or that reading room, they'll cut the trail immediately and disappear. But Bien Haoji told him not to worry about that. Jihu asked why. Bien Haoji curled his lips into a smile. "Because I already have a clever way to avoid triggering her suspicion." Soon after, outside an upscale restaurant, several passers-by suddenly stopped in their tracks. Standing right before them was Crystal, the sexy, cute goddess herself. Staring at her flawless features, people whispered in awe. She's even prettier in real life. No camera can capture her proportions. Who's she waiting for? Her boyfriend? Suddenly, they noticed a man walking toward her. Is that really her boyfriend? What kind of guy would that be? Probably a rich Middle Eastern tycoon, and handsome too. The man stopped in front of Crystal and said politely, "Miss Crystal, I'm Haoji 123, the one you're meeting today. I heard your ideal type is someone who treats you like a princess." Hearing his voice, Crystal quickly turned to greet him. From a distance, Jihu watched everything unfold. Disguised, Bien Haoji asked in a gentlemanly tone, "May I have the honor of escorting you?" Jihu screamed internally, "Uncle, that line went out of style ages ago." On the way, Bien Haoji asked thoughtfully, "The trip here wasn't too long, right? Please allow me to escort you back. I know a great inner-city bus route." Crystal politely declined, explaining she drove and it only took an hour. Listening to everything, Jihu thought to himself, she's been guarded from the very start. What kind of information could he possibly get from someone like this? Can I really trust him? Soon, they entered the reserved restaurant and sat down. Bien Haoji clearly came prepared with first-date conversation survival strategies. The first move, in his mind, was showing masculine charm. He spoke seriously. "A steak this thick would be cruel to lips as delicate as yours. Allow me to chew." "No, cut it for you." Crystal forced a polite smile and thanked him. Suddenly, a sharp glint flashed in Bien Haoji's eyes. In an instant, his knife moved, cutting the steak into neat strips with surgical precision. He handed the plate to Crystal like a gentleman. Despite the steak's now questionable appearance, she maintained her smile and thanked him. From afar, Jihu muttered, "Is that beef tartare or what?" After the meal, Jihu continued tailing them, thinking to himself, "That uncle looks suspicious no matter how you slice it." He screamed internally, "This isn't an investigation at all. He's just enjoying the date." Soon, the date came to an end. Bien Haoji offered a courteous farewell, and Crystal said she had a lovely time. As Bien Haoji continued with his goodbyes, Crystal suddenly bowed and cut him off. "That I truly enjoyed today. Mr. Haoji, I wish you happiness in the future, Mr. Haoji." Back at the law office, Jihu wouldn't stop teasing him. "You were smiling so wide it reached your ears, yo. Drooling like crazy. I thought the neighborhood was flooding, yo." Bien Haoji replied calmly. Jihu, adding yo to every sentence doesn't magically make it polite. Jihu finally snapped at, "So, did you enjoy your 5 million won date? We spent money and time. What did we actually gain?" Bien Haoji fell into thought. So Crystal is far more mysterious and far more plain. than we imagined. Mysterious, way too mysterious. But why? Hearing this, Jihu rolled up his sleeves, ready to discipline the uncle. Then Bien Haoji suddenly spoke in a serious tone. Why would a so-called third-generation chaebol heiress be sleeping rough? Jihu stared at him in disbelief. Sleeping on the streets? That's impossible. Bien Haoji suddenly recited an address point 22-2, 172 Beyond-gil, Yanjiangro, Sajing City, Gyeonggi Province. Jihu froze. Why are you suddenly talking about Yanjiangro? Before he could ask more, Bien Haoji answered calmly, yes, that's Crystal's address. Jihu exploded. You even found her address? How did you pull that off? I was watching you the whole time. The way you watched Crystal drooling, Bien Haoji shot back instantly. That's enough, didn't I tell you? There are no secrets women can hide from me. First, the travel time. When I asked if she needed an escort, she said the drive was about an hour. An hour might sound casual, but her coffee was nearly finished, the sleeves soaked, and the ice completely melted. That means the 1 hour drive wasn't a lie. And that coffee came from a regional cafe, brand rarely seen in Central Seoul. The final clue was her scent, that a distinctive smell no perfume could cover. When dye powder meets a reducing agent, it produces a sharp, unpleasant odor. That woman clearly lives in or near a dye factory. Within an hour's drive from our date location, with both a branded cafe and a dye plant nearby, there's only one place it could be. Jihu said in shock. So all that drooling actually had a purpose. Bien Haoji asked flatly, are you doing this on purpose? Jihu grew excited. Then let's storm the factory, grab the evidence before they run. Bien Haoji shut him down calmly. And oh, approaching now would be reckless. Do you know what underground organizations are best at? Destroying evidence and disappearing. By the time the police arrive, nothing will be left. To catch the real culprit, we'd have to infiltrate the organization. Have me become a member? No, that would take far too long. Jihu then said, this is actually super simple. Bien Haoji frowned. What do you mean? Jihu explained, didn't you say it yourself? When suspicious people appear, they cut ties and run. So the solution is easy, we just slip in quietly. Bien Haoji sighed in resignation, if you really need to take a dump, go do it. I'm not joking about this, get lost. But Jihu insisted. This time he was serious. Jihu added, you're good at this kind of thing, right? Like at the Chinese restaurant. Bien Haoji finally understood what he meant and clenched his fist at him. Why fists carry some serious weight, you know? Jihu quickly clarified that he didn't mean that, then leaned in close and whispered his plan. The moment he heard it, Bien Haoji collapsed to the floor in shock, shouting, are you insane? I can't do this. No way. Absolutely not. The next day, Bien Haoji still showed up at the dye factory. Jihu reassured him over the phone, saying no one would suspect a thing and that he'd guide him step by step. With doubt in his heart, Bien Haoji knocked on the door, fists clenched tight. He kept muttering to himself, this is crazy, completely insane. There's no way this plan works, that I can't do this, that I'll come back after I find another solution. Suddenly, someone inside the factory yelled, which bastard is making noise this early in the morning? A burly man opened the door and asked impatiently, what do you want? Bien Haoji's heart sank. He thought he was done for. But there was no turning back now. He had to go all in. Dressed as a woman, Bien Haoji shyly said, hello, Appa. Yes, this was Bien Haoji in full drag. Clearly, Jihu's carefully planned honey trap. Flashback to the previous night. Bien Haoji stared at Jihu in confusion, pointed at the poster in Jihu's hand, then pointed at himself. He immediately collapsed, shouting, are you crazy? Do you think being a woman is easy? How am I supposed to cross-dress? Jihu calmly replied, that place would get suspicious even if an ant showed up. What do you think happens if a sweaty guy like you walks in? Makeup tech is insane these days. Even an old man can turn into a high school girl. Add a little padding here and there, perfect disguise. Bien Haoji protested desperately. There must be other ways. What about being a ninja? If I could just turn invisible, woof woof. Jihu placed a hand on his shoulder and said firmly, trust me, Uncle Dut, you've got that kind of face. Bien Haoji blinked. What kind of face is that supposed to be? In the next second, Jihu was holding a full set of makeup tools. Bien Haoji panicked. Get away from me, you demon. Why don't you do it? You're pretty. Everyone would love you. I absolutely can't. Much later, Bien Haoji stared at himself in the mirror, admiring his look. This is straight-up idol-level visuals. Jihu, however, replied coldly, still missing something, and continued touching up the makeup. Bien Haoji said confidently, perfect. There's no way I won't fool those gang members. Jin Jihu told him to practice first, so they ran through it together. Bien Haoji pinched his voice and said sweetly, oh my god, Jihu Appa, you're way too handsome. At that moment, the big man stared at Bien Haoji in women's clothes and muttered, those damn bastards. How dare they pull this kind of crap here? Then he turned toward the factory and shouted, you idiots, get your asses out here now. Bien Haoji thought the plan had failed. He lowered his head and whispered to Jin Jiho, this won't work. No one's ever going to mistake me for a woman. But the next second, the big man barked, you morons. You made a VIP wait outside. Get out here and welcome her. Only then did Bien Haoji realize they hadn't seen through him at all. His heart hardened. So be it if things went south, he just wiped them all out. Switching to a soft, girlish tone, Bien Haoji said, I heard that if you come here, you could become a top streamer, so I decided to give it a try. The big man grinned to himself. We've been short on female streamers lately, and she just walked right in. Pretty too. This is a gift from heaven. Without overthinking it, he shoved Bien Haoji inside and said proudly, how do you hear about us? We're the world's #1 star-making experts. Even though he'd successfully gotten in, Bien Haoji couldn't help wondering, streaming in a place like this? Seriously? Once inside, the big man yelled again, hey, say hello, she's new. That was when Bien Haoji finally saw what the place was really like. There were more than a dozen gang members in plain sight, and live streaming in a place like this felt seriously wrong. He quickly updated Jin Jiho. He'd infiltrated successfully, but something about this place was definitely off. A few guys crowded around and started asking for his measurements. One of them laughed and said, if you want, I can measure you myself. Playing cute, Bien Haoji smiled and said, thanks so much, uncle. I'm a rookie streamer, hiring. I'll come find you next time for measurements. Seeing how open she was, the men laughed. Looks like we got ourselves a hot newbie. Let's all get along from now on. Seeing that no one suspected a thing, Bien Haoji finally relaxed. This is going way smoother than expected, but I need to find Crystal fast. Just then, the big man walking ahead suddenly stopped. Wait a second, doesn't this feel off? How did you know this was a streamer studio in the first place? Bien Haoji's heart slammed in his chest. His pulse spiked, and for a moment, he had no idea what to say. When he stayed silent, the big man held out his hand. If you're not answering, hand over your phone. On the other end, Jin Jiho was panicking too. If Bien Haoji got caught here, everything would be over. Suddenly, Bien Haoji stuck his hips out slightly. Once again, he played his looks to full advantage, acting cute as he said, I was introduced by Dukan Appa, but he dropped me off and left. I figured you probably didn't get the message. Hearing that, Jin Jiho grew so tense he nearly stopped breathing. To his surprise, the man actually bought it and relaxed instead. Huh? What? Zhao Dukan sent you? You should have said that from the start. After that, the big man led Bien Haoji further inside. Bien Haoji took the chance to scan his surroundings. In the end, all he saw were dying machines and countless containers. Nothing that looked like a live stream studio. Then the big man suddenly asked, have you thought about what kind of content you want to stream? Bien Haoji pretended to think for a moment before casually bringing up stock reading rooms. The big man laughed. The way you talk, you sound like you know everything. That just happens to be your specialty. We got plenty of people who can give you advice. Bien Haoji quickly asked, really? Who? You know Crystal? The big man said. She's a pretty famous reading room streamer. Of course, Bien Haoji replied. When it comes to reading rooms, nothing beats the sexy and adorable goddess Crystal. Inside, Bien Haoji scoffed. How could I not know her? He dumped his entire savings, 5 million won, on that woman. The big man stopped again and pointed ahead. This is Crystal's studio. She's your senior. She can teach you a lot. Go in and talk to her. Bien Haoji never expected her streaming room to be inside a shipping container. But more than that, he found himself curious about what Crystal looked like off-stream. That let's think this through, he told himself. What would she wear at home when she's truly comfortable? As soon as he stepped inside, Bien Haoji's eyes searched for Crystal. After all, he'd only ever seen her on a screen. Then his eyes widened. The Crystal in front of him looked nothing like the woman he'd gone on a date with yesterday. He couldn't help but wonder, is this really Crystal? Is this really the same person as yesterday? The atmosphere was completely different from her streams. Her face looked drained, her eyes empty of any trace of hope. Bien Haoji had no idea what this woman had been through. Before leaving, the big man told them to greet each other and reminded Crystal to teach the newcomer a few things. But just before he walked away, his tone turned cold. He warned Crystal to get herself together, unless she wanted to end up like that again. Afterward, Bien Haoji sat down on the couch. An oppressive silence filled the room, neither of them daring to speak first. After a long while, Jin Jahe couldn't take it anymore and urged him quietly to start with some common ground. Bien Haoji organized his thoughts. All right, to find the real culprit, I need to get close to the target. And to do that, I need eyes that can see straight through people. That had always been his specialty. Bien Haoji stepped closer and asked carefully, "Sorry to bother you. Are you depressed?" Crystal, however, didn't respond at all. On the other end of the call, Jin Jahe couldn't help cursing under his breath. Bien Haoji quickly explained that he was just trying to find some common ground. Jin Jahe could only sigh. What you just said is basically rubbing salt in her wounds. Do you even know what you're supposed to do when a woman is depressed? You share her pain. You show sincerity, uncle. Only then did Bien Haoji realize what he'd done wrong. He'd been too impatient, so focused on deceiving her and completing the job that he'd forgotten the most important thing. All right, then I'll show my sincerity. He hesitated, then awkwardly asked, excuse me, do you like soccer? Hearing that, Jin Jahe felt completely defeated that is this guy really a lawyer? He wondered, did he steal his license or something? He was so irritated he almost wished Bien Haoji would just beat everyone up and be done with it. But unexpectedly, Bien Haoji's ridiculous question worked. Crystal smiled and said she was a Tottenham fan. She grabbed Bien Haoji's hand excitedly and went on and on about how much she loved the player Hong Min. Jin Jahe could only shrug helplessly. He never imagined that this unreliable uncle would accidentally hit the bullseye. After that, Bien Haoji actively tried to cheer Crystal up. You know, Nuna, back when I was a rookie soldier, everyone in the military league called me Bien Hong Min. Though in reality, Bien Haoji was exempt from military service. Thanks to Bien Haoji's persistence, the exhaustion on Crystal's face gradually faded. After a long while, Crystal wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes. She said softly that this was the first time she'd ever shown her real self to someone, and the first time she'd talked about herself for so long that it might sound strange. But it feels like we just became friends yesterday. We really did meet yesterday, Bien Haoji thought, just in a different chromosomal form. Now's the time to get to the point. She definitely knew who was pulling the strings, but how was he supposed to draw that information out? Just then, Crystal asked, "Your dream is to become a streamer, right?" "Of course," Bien Haoji replied. "I want to be as famous as you, Nuna." Suddenly, Crystal opened her arms. "Then can I hug you?" It was unexpected, but Bien Haoji hugged her anyway. "Is today your first day?" she asked quietly. "Yes," he answered. At that moment, Crystal lowered her voice and whispered, "You need to run. Now, all that top streamer talk is bullshit. If you stay here, you'll really get out. While you still can." Bien Haoji could see the truth in her eyes. They were doing dirty things here. But because of that, he couldn't back down now that he'd gone through all this trouble, cross-dressing and infiltrating. There was no turning back. He quickly pulled away from Crystal's embrace and put on a surprised expression. "Oh my God, Nuna, you have no idea. Hiren's dreams are huge." Just then, Bien Haoji accidentally knocked over the hot coffee on the table. A few drops splashed onto his chest. Crystal rushed over, asking if he was okay. Bien Haoji smiled and said he was tough. This kind of minor burn was nothing. Still, Crystal couldn't relax, worried that leaving it untreated might blister his skin. She immediately stood up, planning to find him something dry to change into. After rummaging around, she apologized softly. "This is all I have right now. You'll have to wear the company uniform for the time being." As she said that, she handed him a sexy swimsuit. Bien Haoji stared at it, his cheeks heating up. "Wearing this, I might as well just strip naked." He quickly declined, saying he didn't mind being a little damp, but Crystal insisted he change. She sighed helplessly. "Everyone's like that at first. Then I'll help you take it off." Bien Haoji's heart skipped. "This is bad. If this keeps going, I'm done for." Crystal pushed him down, trying to help him out of his clothes, saying softly, "We're both girls. It's fine. I'll help you dry off." Bien Haoji panicked and tried to stop her, his mind racing. "What do I do? What do I do?" On the other end, Jin Jahu's scalp went numb that if they realized this uncle was actually a man, the entire plan would collapse. Just as Crystal pulled aside part of his clothing and exposed his shoulder, her eyes widened and she froze. "Hiren," she asked in shock, "you've been hiding this all along?" Bien Haoji answered quietly, "That's why I didn't want you to see. It's like a canvas, covered in the marks of every fight I've been through. Do you want to hear my long, painful story?" Crystal immediately pulled him into a hug. "Don't say anymore. I'm sorry, it's all my fault. I didn't know your path had been so hard. You don't have to explain it. I'll understand." Bien Haoji thanked her softly. "Nuna, you're really kind." Meanwhile, Jin Jahu finally relaxed, but couldn't resist complaining. "Uncle, could you breathe a little softer? Your breath fogged up the mic." At the same time, Zhao Dukin was locked up at the police station, shouting angrily, "I'm the victim here. How can you lock up the victim like this? I told you already. It was another bastard who beat us. Bring your superior here." Just then, the door opened. Zhao Dukin snapped, "What took you so long? If you took the job, you should have gotten here immediately." But the person who showed up wasn't the lawyer Zhao Dukin had hired. It was Han Zhongyue. Zhao Dukin recognized him immediately. Prosecutor Han Zhongyue. He instantly put on a fawning smile and bowed low. "Someone as distinguished as you, Prosecutor Han. Why would you handle such a small, shabby case?" Han Zhongyue didn't humor him at all and told him to explain what had happened. Suppressing his anger, Zhao Dukin said, "That lawyer completely screwed us over. He was supposed to be my lawyer, but I don't know what got into him. He carried all the evidence of our crimes on him and beat my guys half to death." Han Zhongyue cut him off, incredulous that a lawyer getting into fistfights? Zhao Dukin trembled all over, tears even welling up in his eyes, but he kept talking, "Yes, and he's insane at it. In less than 3 minutes, he beat over a dozen of my men into something worse than dogs." Han Zhongyue fell silent, deep in thought. Why would a lawyer do something like this? And a lawyer with combat skills at that level? It was deeply suspicious. "What exactly are you hiding? Bien Haoji, who are you really? What are you planning?" Meanwhile, Bien Haoji was showing Crystal a reaction dance he'd practiced specifically for streaming. Crystal cut him off immediately. "That kind of reaction will just get you refund requests." "Why?" Bien Haoji protested. "I stayed up all night practicing this. He even looked like he was about to show it to the boss." Crystal stopped him in a panic. "No, Hiren, you can't show that to the boss. That I'll teach you instead. Step 1, keep your waist still." But Bien Haoji refused to back down. He figured his dance might actually be the boss's type. "You don't even know what he likes," he said recklessly. "What if he totally falls for me? What if he asked me to become co-owner of the company?" Before he could finish, Crystal shouted, "No." Startled by her reaction, Bien Haoji just stared at her. Crystal spoke seriously. "From now on, listen carefully to what I'm about to say. Never joke about things like that with the boss. You'll get yourself into serious trouble. He's a terrifying man." Bien Haoji seized the chance to ask what happened. What kind of person is he? What Crystal said next left Bien Haoji stunned. "The boss isn't some ordinary entertainment company CEO," she said, fear obvious in her voice point 10 years ago. "He came to Korea. After cleaning up his identity, he started running this company. What he really controls is a massive gang. Bien Haoji blurted out, "What? Wait, are you saying he's a Korean crime boss? That kind of business can't possibly be legal, right?" Crystal answered quietly, "I couldn't believe it at first either. But once you meet him in person, you'll understand. That man, they call him a monster wearing human skin. In the Bronx, New York City, there's a gang known as the Viper Gang. So dangerous even the police avoid them. He was practically born a monster. So joining the Viper Gang was only natural. Not long after joining, he quickly rose to the top that in just a few months, the entire neighborhood was buzzing about the Viper Gang's new leader. Because when he took over, he was only 15. A 15-year-old boy who seized control of the entire gang. From there, he rapidly swallowed up nearby territory and turned the Viper Gang into the largest gang in the state. Then that incident happened. The very reason he had no choice but to flee to Korea. Back then, a man known as KD was the right-hand man of the Viper Gang boss. Fiercely loyal, even willing to offer up his own family for the gang and its leader. That same man was later found dead, his body riddled with no fewer than 46 bullet wounds. The gang erupted, assuming it was an assassination by a rival group. But what followed was unthinkable. The one who killed him was none other than the Viper Gang boss KD, had sworn his life to, all because KD knocked twice when entering the room. You should have known the rules. Knocking twice means you're rushing me. Now you understand, don't you? Though I doubt you can hear it, because you're already dead. Not long after, he was arrested by the police. The judge asked if he had any final words. He casually remarked that the judge looked beautiful. The judge sternly warned him, asking if he understood the seriousness of his situation. He only smiled and replied, wondering aloud what it would feel like to wear a prison uniform. As the judge prepared to reprimand him for joking in court, he suddenly bit down on his own tongue. Guards rushed in and called an ambulance. He was quickly taken to the hospital for treatment. Guards outside whispered that he was just as insane as the rumors claimed. Attempting suicide in court, no less, someone who became a Viper Gang boss at that age was never ordinary. There had to be more they didn't know when a white guard interrupted his black colleague. Staring into the room, he asked in shock, "What is that?" The hospital room was empty, the window wide open. They rushed inside, but found no one anywhere. When they looked down from the window, they froze. The man had jumped. It was the 8th floor. After that, he vanished completely, evading surveillance and escaping to Country H. Along the way, he killed a man and stole his ID. After laundering his identity and undergoing plastic surgery, he began operating in Country H and soon built an even larger criminal organization. That man was Crystal's boss, and the BJ agency was only one of many fronts used to raise funds. Bien Haoji asked in disbelief whether such a thing was really possible that the boss would openly talk about it. Crystal said yes. She heard it from him herself. Everyone who knew the boss was aware of it, but it would never leak outside, because the boss once said, "Go ahead and talk about me all you want. But the moment you do, you and your entire family are dead." Worried, Bien Haoji asked if it was really safe for her to tell him all this. But Crystal replied numbly that she would die by his hands sooner or later, and that it was fine if it was Hiron. No matter what, she would give him a signal when the boss arrived, telling him not to draw attention. If he did, no one knew what would happen. So, before she could finish, shouting suddenly erupted outside. Peeking through a crack in the door, Bien Haoji saw gang members scrambling to clean up and wondered what was going on. Was the boss coming? At that moment, his eyes widened in disbelief. Why was he here? The newcomer was Prosecutor Han Jong-Ui, with a thug eagerly assuring him the place was spotless while Han said he was verifying a few things. As they approached, Bien Haoji hid, wondering how Han knew he was here. Had Zhao Dukan tipped him off? He had to run. Han told the thug he was looking for someone, and the thug promised to dig out every last cockroach if ordered. Suddenly, Han stopped, staring ahead in surprise. He had run straight into Bien Haoji, who was trying to slip away. Bien Haoji frantically calculated his next move. Don't tell me this bastard recognized me. Damn it, should I kill him right now? Screw it, I'll go all in. He immediately stammered to Han Jong-Ui that he was completely a woman, not the kind of person Han was imagining at all, and that this was a huge misunderstanding. Not long before that, Crystal had poked Bien Haoji in the back as he was about to slip away. Bien Haoji turned around nervously, unsure what she meant, but Crystal kept pointing toward the door. The next second, it clicked. He finally understood her signal. Crystal had clearly told him earlier, "When the boss arrives, this is the signal I'll give you. When that happens, you must leave immediately because no one knows what the boss would do once he sees you. That's it. Do you understand? If you see this signal, that man is the boss." Watching Crystal make the gesture, Bien Haoji's mind was left with only one thought. This was insane. Completely insane. A total madman who murdered his own gang members before sneaking into Country H. He completely laundered his identity, rebuilt a criminal organization, and kept running illegal operations. He even committed a hit and run and shamelessly kept silent afterward. And that lunatic turned out to be Prosecutor Han Jong-ui, something even comics wouldn't dare write. At that moment, the thug introduced her to Han Jong-ui, saying she was new and recommended by Big Brother Dukin, adding that he'd put a lot of thought into it. Bien Haoji sneered internally. Thugs like this could actually be useful sometimes, and silently promised to shave at least 1 year off the man's 100-year sentence. Hearing that Zhao Dukin had recommended her, Han Jong-ui felt a flicker of doubt, but he didn't dwell on it and turned to leave. Before leaving, he instructed his subordinates to guard the place carefully, saying he was keeping a close eye on it. Having narrowly escaped, Bien Haoji felt relieved that Han hadn't recognized him and decided he needed to leave immediately. Suddenly, Han Jong-ui stopped and said, "Wait." One of his men wondered if he was being addressed. Instead, Han turned around and asked Bien Haoji directly, "Can we talk alone?" Bien Haoji cursed under his breath. At that moment, Crystal grabbed Bien Haoji's hand. Lowering her voice, she said, "Hiren, don't go with him. I told you, this is really dangerous." Though Bien Haoji didn't understand what had frightened her so badly, he now had even more reason to stay and uncover the truth. This place reeked worse than he'd imagined. A completely sealed space filled with shady figures. If everything Crystal said was true, then the one pulling the strings was Prosecutor Han Jong-ui. Bien Haoji gently pulled his hand free from Crystal's. He turned back to reassure her that he would return. Then he strode forward, almost eager to step straight into the beast's jaws, desperate to learn what this dear prosecutor really wanted. Han Jong-ui led him into an office and asked, "Aren't you curious why I brought you here?" Bien Haoji replied that a capable prosecutor must have his reasons. Han then asked, "I hear you were recommended by Zhao Dukin. Did you know what kind of place this was before you came?" Bien Haoji answered, "Of course. It's the best streaming platform." Suddenly, Han Jong-ui stepped up behind Bien Haoji and said in a low voice, "Even so, you still plan to keep streaming here?" Knowing full well I'm a prosecutor people fear, I suppose that question might be a bit rude for a first meeting. So let me take a look at your bag. As he spoke, Han Jong-ui snatched Bien Haoji's bag. He opened it without hesitation and continued, "Do you know what I trust most in this world? Evidence." On the other end of the line, Jin Jaho was sweating bullets. He hadn't expected Han Jong-ui to suspect the uncle this fast. Bien Haoji's angry voice demanding an explanation still echoed through the phone. Han Jong-ui ignored him completely and said coldly, "Unlike people, objects don't lie, especially the things you can't hide." Bien Haoji shouted, "Isn't it incredibly rude to rummage through a lady's bag? If you want to see something, just say it. I'll show you." But Han Jong-ui had already pulled out Bien Haoji's ID card. Jin Jaho's heart sank. If the uncle was exposed as not being Bien Xiaolin, things would turn dangerous fast. He yelled into the phone, "Uncle, you need to get out of there right now." Yet after checking the ID, Han Jong-ui spoke calmly, "Miss Bien Xiaolin." It turned out Bien Haoji had prepared a fake ID long ago. Everything earlier had been a deliberate act. Jin Jaho finally relaxed, grumbling that the uncle hadn't warned him in advance. Once Han Jong-ui confirmed the identity checked out, he said, "Trust is the first step in any conversation. Since that's settled, let me show you my sincerity." Without warning, Han Zhongyui began taking off his clothes. Bien Haoji quickly covered his eyes, putting on an act of modesty. 2 seconds later, he peeked through his fingers anyway. Looking awkward, he said, "Appa, with a body like that, it's a waste to be a boring prosecutor. Stop messing around. Put your clothes back on." Han Zhongyui replied coldly, "You think this is funny? Listen carefully. Now that you understand what kind of person I am, I finally know who you really are. From now on, I'll know where you live, who you live with, who you're connected to, and what kind of work you've done, even what kind of underwear you wear. Do you understand what that means? From this moment on, until I say otherwise, you'll never escape my grasp." On the phone, Jin Jaho couldn't help saying he didn't understand Han Zhongyui at all. He'd fled to H country to wash away his past and could have lived quietly as a prosecutor. Yet he still chose to meddle in crime. Bien Haoji was just as uncertain. This man who played a fanatical symbol of justice on the surface, yet secretly led a criminal organization. What exactly was Han Zhongyui? Still, proving he was the real hit-and-run culprit required evidence, and someone that Meticulous would surely try to erase every trace. His attention to detail was downright pathological. Jin Jaho didn't believe any evidence could still exist and asked the uncle what they should do next. Bien Haoji said, "I found something very interesting. When I snuck into the police station to clear Zhao Dukin's name and desperately destroyed all the evidence, I noticed something strange. There was blood on the wheel spokes beneath the steering wheel. Generally speaking, in a traffic accident, if a driver isn't wearing a seatbelt, the part of the body that instinctively slams forward when the brakes are hit is where blood is most likely to appear. That means this is the evidence left behind by the real culprit while driving. However, since we don't know whose blood it is, it can't be used as proof for now. But the situation is different now. If I can get even a small sample of Han Zhongyui's blood, we can compare it with the blood on the wheel spokes." Just as Bien Haoji stepped out the door, someone called out, "Hey newbie." Bien Haoji turned back and smiled. "What do you handsome oppas need me to do?" One of the thugs replied, "We've got a welcome party. Whenever a new member joins, the big boss personally gives them a special welcome." Bien Haoji responded cheerfully, "You guys are too kind. Let's go then." At that moment, Crystal placed a hand on Bien Haoji's shoulder and said, "Xiaolin, I'll head over first. You take a break. I have something urgent to discuss with the oppas." Seeing this, Bien Haoji had no choice but to let Crystal go ahead, explaining that it was simply because he was still new. But as Crystal followed the thug away, her body began trembling uncontrollably. Soon, she was brought to the door of her room. Inside, a man turned around and said cheerfully, "Is Xiaolin here? I've been waiting for you." But when he realized it was Crystal, his expression hardened. "Crystal? What are you doing here?" The man was one of Han Zhongyui's subordinates. Crystal explained, "Xiaolin isn't feeling well. If you have something to tell her, I can pass it along." The man replied coldly, "Don't pretend you don't know. You know exactly what I want. You've heard what I have to say enough times already. You've been gone for a while. Miss our little welcome party?" Crystal began shaking all over, yet still forced out the words, "That girl doesn't know anything." The next second, her legs gave out and she collapsed, still clutching the man's clothes and begging him to spare Xiaolin. The man suddenly flung her away and said coldly, "You crazy woman. Do I have to beat you awake? Looks like I'll have to say it to you one more time today," he said, "and then say it again to Xiaolin. Or maybe there's an easier way. How about we talk to both of you at the same time?" At that moment, a hand reached out, blocking the man from Crystal. To her shock, it was Bien Haoji. Crystal shouted anxiously, "Why did you come here? Go back now." Bien Haoji remained calm and said lightly, "He said he had something to tell me, and I've always been a curious person. How could I resist?" The man's lips curled into a cold smile. "That's exactly why I like you. Come here." As he spoke, he brushed Bien Haoji's hair aside and said with ill intent, "Around here, whenever a newcomer joins, we always have a little chat first. If we're going to work well together, we need to get closer, right? But today there are 2 of you, so I think this will be a 2-on-1 conversation. And just so, you know, this room is soundproof. Do you understand what that means? No matter how loudly you scream, no one outside will hear a thing." At that moment, Bien Haoji cut him off. So this is your true face? You're disgusting, low, filthy trash. The next second, Bien Haoji shoved Crystal out of the room and slammed the door shut. Crystal scrambled up and began pounding on the door in panic. Xiaolin, open the door. No, I can't let Xiaolin go through something like that. The man sneered. I've never seen a bitch with this much fight in her. Bien Haoji replied in a low voice. I know exactly everything you've done up to this point. And to be honest, I quite enjoy private interviews too. As he spoke, he moved as if to take off his clothes. The man didn't care at all and laughed coldly. Then let's fight. We'll see who wins. And I'll keep you busy for 3 days and 3 nights. Suddenly, his gaze froze as if he'd seen something unbelievable. At that moment, Bien Haoji had not only taken off his underwear, he had even removed his wig. The man never imagined that he was actually male. Bien Haoji spoke calmly. Just like you said, your legs, shoulders, skull, and every organ inside your body. I can deal with all of it. Yet the man showed no fear at all. His face twisted as he snarled. I've been running the streets for 10 full years. Why'd I always end up with this kind of crap? I don't know what you want, you little punk, but I'll kill you first and then listen. With that, he raised the bat and charged at Bien Haoji. The instant it came down, Bien Haoji twisted aside, dodging it cleanly, and grabbed a rope from the floor. In the next second, the man's hands were bound tight. Bien Haoji slammed him hard onto the ground. Then he planted a foot on the man's face. I hear you groaning pretty loudly, Bien Haoji said softly. Tell me, what should I do? No matter how much you scream in here, no one outside will hear a thing. Not even an ant. He looked down at his handiwork and spoke in a deliberately soft voice. Xiaolin doesn't really understand this stuff. Appa, don't tell me you're shy because it's your first time? With that, Bien Haoji swung the rope again and again, lashing the man suspended in midair. The man begged desperately, please, I'll do anything. Just let me go. Bien Haoji finally stopped. Anything, really? The man nodded frantically. Yes, anything. Bien Haoji broke into a crazed laugh. Then let's keep this going. Meanwhile, Crystal sat alone outside the door waiting. Suddenly, she heard the door open. She jumped to her feet, rushing to check on Bien Haoji. Instead, she saw him clutching his clothes, looking utterly wronged. Crystal asked anxiously, Xiaolin, are you okay? Tears welled in Bien Haoji's eyes as he whimpered, Uni. In the next instant, Crystal pulled him tightly into her arms. She whispered, it's okay. Don't say anything. Let's go back and wash all of this away. After that, Crystal took Bien Haoji back to her room. What she didn't know was that the one truly left scarred was the man from earlier. Just moments ago, Bien Haoji had forced him to pull his underwear over his head and lie face down on the floor, naked, then took photos of him. With a twisted smile, he said quietly, from the moment you talked about me, you became a nationally known perverted piece of trash. The man wept in humiliation and cursed, you bastard. At the time, Crystal was taking shower. Bien Haoji sat on the bed, discussing the next steps with Jin Jiho on the phone. Jin Jiho asked, Uncle, how are you planning to get Han Zhongyuai's blood? Bien Haoji told him not to worry. He already had a plan. Jin Jiho immediately got excited. I get it. You're going to beat him up first and draw blood, right? Bien Haoji cut him off. Relax. DNA doesn't have to come from blood. Crystal then asked, Xiaolin, who are you talking to all by yourself? She stepped out of the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, and said, you should go wash up too. Seeing this, Bien Haoji quickly covered his eyes. Crystal asked in confusion, why are you so surprised? It's just the two of us. Bien Haoji hurriedly replied, Uni, even so, girls shouldn't do things like this. Crystal frowned. What are you talking about? It's because we're both girls that it's fine. It's time to sleep. She lay down on the bed and patted the space beside her. Come on, lie here. Let's sleep together. Bien Haoji said nervously, Uni, what are you saying? Isn't this moving a bit fast? And my sleeping habits aren't great? I'm not sure you could handle it. On the other end of the line, Jin Jiho warned, Uncle, if you lie down, I'm calling the police. Bien Haoji had no choice but to explain to Crystal, I'm overly sensitive in a lot of ways, so I can't sleep with you, Uni. but I really don't know much about other things. Your bed looks so soft. I usually sleep on cold, hard floors, so I'm curious what it feels like. At that moment, the phone on the table vibrated. When Bien Haoji read the message, he was stunned. Crystal sat up immediately and asked, "Who is it?" Meanwhile, Jin Jaho asked anxiously, "Have the police arrived already?" Bien Haoji didn't answer. He walked straight toward the door. Crystal hurried after him. "Where are you going?" Bien Haoji replied, "Uni, I think I need to step out for a bit, but it shouldn't be a big deal. I'll be right back." The scene shifted as Bien Haoji went to Han Zhongyui, smiling shyly. "I just wanted you to know, I don't like clingy guys. You still want to know more about me, right?" It turned out the message earlier had been sent by Han Zhongyui himself. Han replied, "How did you know? I am clingy. I called because I'm curious about something." On the surface, Bien Haoji asked what he was curious about, while calculating how to collect his DNA. Jin Jaho had once suggested beating Han and drawing blood, but Bien Haoji had already said he had a plan. After all, DNA doesn't have to come from blood. Hair samples work just as well. The real issue was how to get close to a highly alert Han Zhongyui. One wrong move, and Bien Haoji's identity would be exposed. Still, for someone who had lived over a decade on Glory's assassin pay, this wasn't complicated. He casually lifted Han's tie and smiled. "So late at night, what part of me are you suddenly curious about?" Han asked, "Are you from Seoul?" Bien shot back, "Do I look like it?" "Appa, everyone says I look like a snobbish Seoulite. I'm exhausted." Han raised a glass and offered it. "The peaty aroma is nice." Bien accepted it, acting shy. "I'm actually not great with alcohol." In truth, he worried it might be poisoned. Even holy water wouldn't make him drink it. Han asked again, "What about your family?" Bien replied, "Both parents are alive and healthy. I also have a sister who's ugly as a toad." Han asked with interest, "Is your sister as pretty as you?" Bien leaned in and whispered, "That's a secret, but our faces look very similar." He placed a hand beneath his chest and added, "In this area, I'm better, so we can't share clothes." He then laughed and patted Han's shoulder. "What am I even saying? Nothing to brag about. People always misunderstand. Just forget it." Bien smirked to himself. This was only the appetizer. The real lesson was how a professional woman reels in a foolish man. Bien Haoji deliberately lifted his foot and tripped himself. Using the stumble as momentum, he pinned Han Zhongyui against the table. Even though it was all part of the plan, Bien Haoji felt a deep, instinctive disgust toward Han. Han's eyes turned vicious as he barked, "Is this fun? Are you getting off me or not?" Bien Haoji straightened up at once and apologized, sneering inwardly. "Go ahead, put on your scary act." He had already collected a hair sample anyway. Han stood up, brushed off his clothes, and said coolly, "You've ruined the taste of this drink. Sit down. Let's talk." Bien Haoji followed up, "I'm curious about something too, though I'm not sure we're close enough for me to ask. Appa, you're busy every day with your work as a prosecutor. Why run a place like this? If you just stayed a prosecutor, you'd be respected for life. Wouldn't that be nice?" Han's lips curved into an icy smile. He replied unhurriedly, "Everyone has what they're good at and what they truly enjoy. Do you understand? Being a prosecutor is what I'm good at, but what I enjoy is something else." Bien Haoji covered his mouth, feigning shock. "How scary, prosecutor. You wouldn't kill someone with that, or anything else, would you?" What he really thought was, "Look at this guy, acting cool and spouting nonsense in front of me." Han spoke casually, his tone chilling. "I killed someone recently, on the road." As if anticipating it, Bien Haoji pressed down on his earpiece almost instantly. He knew Jin Jaho would lose it if he heard this. Han noticed nothing and went on. He was a delivery driver, a father who loved his only son. Before he died, he taught me quite a few things. Hitting a person with a car feels completely different from hitting a deer. Later, I realized doing it with my own hands feels even better. On the other end of the line, Jin Jaho kept asking, "Uncle, what's going on?" "The connection's fine, but there's no sound at all." Bien Haoji asked in a low voice, "Wouldn't it be dangerous if you were caught?" Han answered instead, "Why do you think that? Why do you think I can talk to you about this so freely? Jumping into a fire without thinking about the consequences, just for fun. That's what amateurs do. I'm a prosecutor from this country's Ministry of Justice, Han Zhongyui said coldly. When things like this happen, I'm the one standing on the front line, facing the case. And if any evidence surfaces, I'm also the most qualified person to erase it, because I'm a prosecutor. After that, Han said he'd said all he needed to say. The conversation was over. He told Bien Haoji to go sleep in Crystal's room tonight. But Bien Haoji had already achieved his goal. With his strand of hair, he could prove that Han Zhongyui was the real murderer of Jin Jahe's father. There was still one tricky problem, though. How to get Crystal to remove the collar and escape this place with him. At that moment, a spark flashed through Bien Haoji's mind. He suddenly realized there had been a simple solution all along. Turning around, he asked, "Appa, is this car yours?" As he spoke, he shook the car keys in his hand, clearly trying to get Han to take him out for a drive. Xiaolin has never ridden in such a nice car before. How about we go for a spin right now? Just the two of us. Under such tight surveillance, sneaking out would be nearly impossible. If sneaking wasn't an option, then leaving openly would work just fine. Showing off a car was practically a man's instinct. You must be dying to flaunt it by now, right? Come on, take the bait, Han Zhongyui. But things didn't go as planned. Han said indifferently, "Why would I do that?" Bien Haoji was ready for this. "I'm just curious about the car, and I'd like to see your driving skills." Then he suddenly acted unwell. "I feel a little dizzy. I haven't been in the sun much lately, probably a vitamin D deficiency." To his surprise, Han actually agreed. "Keep up." He tossed back one more line. "Let's get you some vitamin D." Bien Haoji immediately answered in a sweet tone. "All right then, since you say so." Soon after, Han drove, taking Bien Haoji racing wildly down the road. Inside the car, Bien Haoji rambled on about its performance. "This must be running on premium fuel, right? That refined scent. It's like a breeze flowing out of the exhaust." Han asked with interest, "You know a lot about cars?" Bien blurted out, "Every man has a dream car in his heart." The moment the words left his mouth, he realized the slip and quickly added that he was only a little more interested than most girls. "I don't really know much about cars, Appa. You'll have to teach me everything." Bien Haoji was already certain. Even Han Zhongyui would fall for it. This was just human nature. No matter how hard you try to hide it, you can't conceal those flushed ears. Men are that easy. Praise them once, smile a little, and they're done for. His plan was simple. Secure the hair and blood samples he'd already collected, then send them straight to the National Forensic Center. Once the hair matched the DNA in the blood, you'd be finished, Han Zhongyui bastard. But there was still one problem. Bien Haoji couldn't let Han drive him to the Forensic Center, so he had to get the hair to Jin Jahe instead. While Han focused on driving, Bien quietly pulled out his phone and arranged to meet Jin Jahe at the convenience store next to the law office. He couldn't just get out of the car. He needed a reason that looked completely natural. Suddenly, inspiration struck. If someone owned a car this luxurious, there was no way they'd refuse. He cleared his throat softly and called out, "Appa, I think I need to pee. No, what should I do? I'm really about to wet myself." Then he pointed ahead. "Oh my God, there's a convenience store right there. I'll be right back." Bien Haoji knew Han would stop, because if he didn't, Bien might actually pee. Everyone's imagined someone peeing in their expensive car at least once, right? Just as Bien predicted, Han finally pulled over in front of the convenience store. Bien jumped out, tossing over his shoulder, "I'll be right back," and rushed inside to meet Jin Jahe. Jin asked what had happened. Bien said he'd almost died, but that wasn't the point right now. He handed over the bag containing Han's hair and told Jin to take it straight to the National Forensic Center. Then he hurried to the counter and asked if he could use the restroom. The clerk hesitated and asked, "Men's or women's?" Bien replied, "Men's, of course." At that moment, an angry shout came from the entrance. "Lawyer, I know you're in there. Come out." When Jin Jahe saw who it was, his face went pale. Bien Haoji made a split-second decision. He had to check it out, but without letting Han Zhongyui see him. He asked the clerk where the back door was. By the time they reached the law office, both of them were staring in disbelief, unable to understand how those men had found the place. Standing there were Wu Tae-sik and Huang Cheon-gil. The same two men who had come after Jin Jaho for debt that day. The pair stood up and closed in, sneering. Tracking down guys like you is what we're best at. Then Wu Tae-sik looked at Jin Jaho and said, I've been diagnosed with needing 780 weeks of treatment. Basically stuck in a hospital until my 60th birthday party. So where's your big shot lawyer now? Bien Haoji hadn't expected not to be recognized at all. He wanted to kill them on the spot, but if his cross-dressing was exposed, it would cause endless trouble. At that moment, Wu Tae-sik walked straight up to Jin Jaho. Jin hurriedly replied, Uncle's busy. He's not coming today. Wu grinned. Relax. There's an easy way to make the lawyer show up. The next second, he leaned in close to Jin and raised his hand viciously. We just need to beat you to death. Seeing this, Bien Haoji had no choice. He'd have to beat them half to death and wipe their memories afterward. Just then, someone grabbed Wu Tae-sik's wrist firmly, stopping his move cold. The one who intervened was Han Jong-ui, who didn't recognize him and asked, Are you a lawyer too? Bien Haoji hadn't expected Han to walk in at this exact moment, and he didn't know how to respond. Jin Jaho stood there, stunned. It was his first time seeing Han Jong-ui in person. Han glanced at Bien Haoji and asked calmly, Is this the restroom? Bien replied awkwardly, Appa, it was too noisy over here, so I came to take a look. Inside, he thought, Han doesn't know this is my law office yet. I need to get him out fast. Adjusting his glasses, Han said evenly, This is a business establishment. Leave quietly now, or I'll call the police for trespassing. Wu sneered, Are you friends with that lawyer bastard? Then you could die together today. Han warned him coldly, Listen carefully. From this moment on, stop provoking me. Wu mocked him back. Can't this guy answer questions? And if we don't listen, what are you going to do about it? Before he finished speaking, Han's fist slammed into Wu's jaw. In the next instant, Han unleashed a rapid series of punches. Moments later, Wu Tae-sik crashed heavily to the floor. Han planted a foot on him and said coldly, I'll dig up all your personal information, where you live, who you live with, and everyone you're connected to. Every crime you've committed will land on my desk, one by one. At that moment, Bien Haoji's eyes widened, because in Han's hand was Bien Haoji's work badge. Bien silently prayed Han would smash it without thinking. Otherwise, Han would realize this place was his law office. But things went the opposite way. Han glanced at the badge and clearly saw the name Bien Haoji. Han then let Huang Cheong-gil and Wu Tae-sik go. Clearly surprised by the coincidence, he said, So, this is Bien Haoji's office? Looks like our lawyer works in a place that never sees daylight. Since I'm already here, I should at least meet him. He turned to Jin Jaho. Can you call Bien Haoji right now? Jin stalled. I don't think he's free to answer. At that moment, Han Jong-ui suddenly grabbed Jin Jaho's hand. Whether Bien Haoji answers or not, 906 will find out once we call. Dial him right now in front of me. Jin Jaho thought grimly. He didn't know Han's motive, but calling now would expose everything.